Horse Diaries, Cinders, Appendix. The Big Burn. In 1871, Chicago was the fourth largest city in America. Located on the western shores of Lake Michigan, it boasted a population of 334,000. The wealthier people lived in mansions in the city's southeast district. Poorer folks lived scattered about in shacks and tenements in the west, north, and south. The business district, located in the center of the city, included office buildings, department stores, theaters, opera houses, and grand hotels. Along the two branches of the Chicago River, which ran through the city, there were wharves, lumber yards, workshops, warehouses, coal yards, and bridges. Wood sourced from the great forest to the north was the primary building material. Even buildings made of stone were covered with the wooden decorations. Wooden sidewalks raised pedestrians above the mud. Of the 538 miles of streets, only 88 miles were paved, and 57 of them were paved with wooden blocks. All in all, Chicago was a highly flammable city. In the late 1800s, most towns and cities in America still had volunteer fire departments, but Chicago had 25 fire departments manned with 185 paid, trained professional firefighters. These men had their work cut out for them. In 1868 alone, 515 fires were recorded in the city, an average of 2 alarms every day. There was an elaborate firefighting system. A central watchman, located in the tower of the courthouse, kept an eye out for fires. In addition, each fire station had a watchman. When the courthouse watchman spotted a fire, he rang the bell and telegraphed the fire stations closest to the blaze. If someone on the street spotted flames, they went to the nearest firebox to alert the courthouse, which notified the proper fire station. The giant courthouse bell tolled a code that broadcasted the fire's location. There were also special insurance patrols, men who patrolled the streets on foot, ready to put out small fires with extinguishers or turn on alarms for bigger blazes. So you might well ask, if Chicago was so well prepared, how did a small fire in a dairy barn result in a citywide disaster like the Great Fire? The afternoon of Sunday, October 8, 1871, was unseasonably warm and dry. The summer-long drought had lasted into the fall. The trees drooped with dry leaves, and a steady wind from the southwest gusted and swirled. Just the day before, a 16-hour blaze had exhausted the city's firefighters and taxed their equipment, including most of the 17 steam engines all the city had. We will never know for sure what started the fire, but we do know where it started, in Mrs. O'Leary's dairy barn on the corner of DeKoven and Jefferson Streets. Legend has it that one of her cows kicked over a kerosene lantern. There was even a famous song written about it. One dark night, when people were in bed, Mrs. O'Leary lit a lantern in her shed. The cow kicked it over, winked its eye, and said, "There will be a hot time in the old town tonight." Later, an official investigation revealed that the cow was probably not to blame, nor was Mrs. O'Leary, who had gone to bed early that night. Perhaps the story of the guilty cow survives in popular myth and imagination because it was such a simple explanation. But the real cause of the fire remains murky. One theory has it that guests of the O'Leary's tenants who were having a party that night went to the barn to get milk and accidentally kicked over the lantern. Another theory maintains that boys smoking and playing poker in the hayloft started it. Still another attributes the fire to a falling meteor. We do know that a friend of the O'Learys, Daniel Pegleg Sullivan, testified that he called on the family at 9 o'clock and discovered that they had all gone to bed. Sullivan had sat down to rest his stump when he spotted smoke. "Pat, Kate," he shouted, "your barn is on fire." There was a firebox on the nearby corner at Gold's drugstore. Mr. Gall later said he sent in 2 alarms, but watchers at the courthouse claimed never to have received them. Was the firebox not working properly, or was Mr. Gall lying? We'll never know, but we do know that the courthouse watchers incorrectly pegged the location of the fire and repeatedly sounded the wrong alarms. Only 2 fire companies whose lookouts had spotted flames, Engine Company 6, Little Giant, located on Maxwell Street, and Engine Company 5, UP Harris, located on West Jackson Street, arrived right away. All the others went on a wild goose chase, giving the fire a head start. Within the first hour, the wind drove the fire into neighboring yards. Barns, houses, chicken coops, trees, sidewalks, and fences went up in flames. Neighbors helped residents pull furniture, clothes, and family members to safety while the flames leaped from roof to roof. Chief Fire Marshal Robert A. Williams, the citywide head of the fire department, arrived to supervise. He ordered the men to surround the fire, but the fire jumped over their heads and fanned out. The wind whipped up the flames, causing a phenomenon known as a fire devil. As heated air rose and met cooler air, it began to spin like a tornado. The fire devils whirled, carrying sparks, burning firebrands, and debris, spreading the conflagration far and wide. The fire advanced and unchecked. Embers fell, according to eyewitnesses, like a blizzard of red snow. Some of them landed on St. Paul's Church, 4 blocks away from the O'Leary's barn. The steeple caught fire, and from there the embers blew across the river into the business district and wealthy residential district. As the fire made its way through the city, it burned down shanty towns as well as mansions. It destroyed factories and businesses, hotels and department stores, theaters and bridges, and office buildings. When the city waterworks burned down at 3 o'clock on Monday morning, the fire pumps stopped being able to draw water. As Monday morning dawned, the mayor sent out an SOS, Chicago in Flames. Help soon came pouring in from Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Dayton, Louisville, Detroit, Pittsburgh, and other cities. Despite all the efforts, the fire continued to run rampant. The streets were mobbed with looters, people fleeing the fire, and spectators watching in horrified fascination. 30,000 homeless people flocked to Lincoln Park on the shores of Lake Michigan. The fire burned all of Monday and well into the evening. It might well have gone on burning too, were it not for the rain that started falling that night. The showers slowed down the spread long enough for firefighters to get the upper hand. By the time the fire was out, it had destroyed an area 4 miles long and a mile wide, burning 18,000 buildings and 73 miles of street. It killed 300 people and left another 100,000 homeless. Newspaper writers call it the Great Fire. Want to know more about the Great Chicago Fire? Go to chicagohs.org. Did Miss O'Leary's cow start the fire? Visit the site to read an in-depth investigation, greatchicagofire.org. An ancient breed. The Percheron gets its name from the district in northern France known as Les Perches, which the breed is said to date back to the late Ice Age. Over the centuries, people used the Percheron to do farm work. In 1732, when the Moors invaded during the Battle of Tours, Arabian blood was mixed with Percheron. Perhaps it is the Arabian strain that accounts for the Percheron's distinctive combination of strength and grace. The Percheron is black or gray and ranges in height from 15 to 19 hands and weighs between 1,400 and 2,600 pounds. A willing worker with a good disposition, it also has enormous stamina, enabling it to travel up to 35 miles a day at a trot. Owing to its size, strength, and intelligence, the Percheron was the breed favored by firemen to haul heavy equipment in the days before motorized vehicles. For more information about Percherons, visit percheronhorse.org. Heroes on the Hoof. In 1832, New York's Mutual Hook and Ladder Company, Number 1, purchased a horse. It was probably the first official fire horse. Up until this time, firemen carried their own tools or hauled them in a wagon. But as cities grew larger, firefighting equipment got heavier, so horses became a necessity. Why horses? Horses are sensitive creatures that spook easily, and fires are terrifying. But firemen maintained that a properly trained horse was as good as gold. In fact, it cost 10 times the salary of a single fireman to buy and train a fire horse over a 2-year period. And not just any horse would do. The horse had to be smart and strong and sure-footed. The Percheron was the breed most commonly chosen, but draft horses, saddlebreds, and thoroughbreds were also used. The city of Detroit even had a college devoted exclusively to training horses, but in most cases, firemen trained horses at their own stations. Learning to stay calm and cool at the side of a fire, however, was something that only came to a horse with on-the-job experience, and that experience was often scary and dangerous. Running across cobblestones or ice and snow, horses sometimes slipped and fell on the way to a fire, or like the firemen they worked with, they got burned, sometimes fatally. But because the job was so stressful and dangerous, the career of a fire horse was usually between 4 and 8 years. With the invention of motorized engines in the early 1900s, firefighters no longer needed horses to pull their equipment. After 60 years of brave and valiant service, fire horses became a thing of the past. Check out this site dedicated to keeping the memory of fire horses alive, firehorses.info. Cinders and the horses at the Maxwell Street Fire Station are fictional characters. To read about some actual fire horses in history, go to equitrekking.com, articles, entry, famous horses in history, the fire horse. From coach dogs to fire dogs. Built for speed and endurance, Dalmatians have served as sporting dogs, war dogs, ratters, shepherds, and coach dogs. Here in America, Dalmatians are best known as fire dogs. Their job was to run alongside the fire horses, helping them stay on course and not spook, either on the way to the fire or once they were on site. Fires are noisy, scary places, and horses are high-strung. There was something about the Dalmatians that kept the horses calm and steady. In the years since motorized trucks have replaced horses, firefighters still keep Dalmatians as firehouse mascots, a memory of how it was in the old days. For more information on this wonderful breed, visit akc.org/dog breeds/Dalmatian.